What's up, deep thinkers? It's Robert from Existence First. And life is wild, life is crazy, but we got to think about it and we got to make sense out of it. So I'm going to do this video on the machinery of spirituality. And when I say machinery, that may sound like a mismatch, but that's how I am. I'm analytical, and this meaning of life stuff, we need to make some sense out of it. So let's get started. Now, I was reading this book called Cashing In on the American Dream, Retire at Age 35. It's an oldie, 1988, but it was recommended by Mark Cuban, so that speaks for itself. Anyways, I was reading this author's strategy, and basically his strategy for retiring early is living at a very frugal level. So he decided to amass a specific amount of money, live off the interest, but the way he was able to live off the interest at such a low amount was by driving economical car instead of a luxury car, that sort of thing. So you get the idea, right? And what does this have to do with spirituality? Okay, well, that's a decision that he made, a trade-off, right? And so what really struck me about that example is that I was analyzing the structure of that. What's really going on is he's making a value decision, right? So he's saying that there's one thing more important than the other. His freedom from the 9-to-5 job is more important than him driving a luxury car. Okay, so right there, he's subordinating the quality of that car. He's subordinating it to his freedom. It's less important than his freedom. His freedom is more important than the quality of the car. Okay, and I don't necessarily agree, but I'm just saying that's the structure. Okay, so that being said, let's take a look at some examples from this famous article. Actually, a book was written about it called "The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying." Okay, I actually spoke about this in depth in my program Unchained, which you can find on my website. But Top 5 Regrets of the Dying is written by a nurse who was taking care of people in their last and final days of their lives, as they were on their deathbed. And she gathered these common regrets that she noticed people had. Okay, and those regrets are as follows. Number 1, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. Number 2, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. Number 3, I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. Number 4, I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. Number 5, I wish I had let myself be happier. Okay, now you might hear these things and say, wow, that's deep. And I mean, it's a reflection on life. But this is Existence First, and we don't go 1 layer deep. We go 2 and 3 layers deep. So let's analyze this, okay? The structure of all of these, if you think about it, is the same as the structure of that example I gave earlier. So for example, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. Okay, now that example, wish I'd had the courage to live life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. In other words, the regret is that as they lived their life, they put other people's opinion as senior or superior to their own opinion of what they wanted out of life. So maybe a cliche example, let's say their family members wanted them to be a lawyer, but then they wanted to be an artist, and they gave in to what their family wanted and they became a lawyer, but they spent every day daydreaming about being an artist. There's a decision that has to be made there. So number 2, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. So there again, I mean, maybe a parent stayed late at the office and they missed watching their kids softball game or something, So right there is another example of this subordination. So one of those has to go higher than the other, right? So either the person's going to subordinate their child's softball game to their job, or they're going to subordinate the job to the child's softball game. Okay, so there again, we notice, and this is significant, okay, because now we're looking at all these regrets that people have on their deathbeds, but we're noticing a common structure to them. So this is the machinery of spirituality. This is the structure, the whole system of how the human being thinks, right? This can be turned into a science. You know, we think of spirituality as, oh, this right-brained activity, which, yes, there's feeling involved, but there's a system involved also, okay? Let's go on. Go on to my third example. It's actually a set of 3 examples, and maybe you'll recognize some of these famous Instagram people. Anytime that I see something like inspirational or like a reflection on life, I screenshot it, okay? So let's go find my 2 pictures. So there's this famous dude on Instagram named Matthew Noska. He's a model, right? And at some point in the last 5 years, he became super famous. I think he was on the Ellen Show, right? I guess for his good looks or charm or whatever. Anyways, he posted a video that was taken 5 years ago, before he became famous. And this is the caption. He says, in this video, I just had my heart broken and I was completely broke. I called my best friend and asked him if he could get me a job at his work. This was after my first day at the Lebanese restaurant. It's amazing how excited I was because I made $80, which is chump change compared to what he makes now. Incredible how much can change in such a short amount of time. I am blessed, blah, blah, blah. Here, watch this. But right now, I would give absolutely everything I have to go back to this moment. In the video, he's riding a bicycle in the rain, right? And he's so happy that he made $80, right? I would give everything I have to go back to this moment. He says, life is so short. Most of us take so much for granted and are always wanting more and more. What's enough? I am telling you from experience, nothing materialistic matters and never will. Cherish every breath, every laugh, every single smile. Sounds kind of cliche, but okay. As if it's your last. Those are what mean the most. Okay, so those are what mean the most. Every smile, breath, laugh. Now, what's the structure of that advice? A very spiritual statement, right? What's the structure of it? Those are what mean the most. Those are what mean the most. Meaning, they're more important than these other things. So once again, we have the prioritization, the subordination phenomenon. Okay. Let's go on to example number 2. Example number 2, famous, they call him the king of Instagram, right? Dan Bilzerian posts all these pictures about his wealth. He's got millions of dollars and all the models that hang around him. Well, one of his posts was a picture of his mansion, newly built, and he wrote an interesting caption to it. The caption was this: the road to the top is better than the top. Don't be in such a hurry that you don't enjoy the ride. The road to the top is better than the top. It's good advice, and let's look at the structure of that. The road to the top is better than the top. The road to the top is better than the top. Once again, there's a shift of discrepancy in value here. Okay? And his point is that it's counterintuitive. You would think that the top is going to be, well, the top, right? You know, you've made it to the heights of fame, success, money, etc. Well, you think that's the top. But no, the road, the journey to the top. And, you know, we all hear this advice, right? Oh, it's the journey, not the destination, right? Enjoy the journey, right? And yeah, it's cliche, but what is the structure behind that? See, that's the common structure to all of this self-help advice. And we have to figure that out because that's at the heart of it. That's even deeper than this supposed deep knowledge, right? So the structure of it is subordination, one more important than the other. Last example, there's a very cool real estate mogul named Mike Wolf. I actually have his picture here. Yeah, Mike Wolf, real estate guy. owns a lot of real estate, and he's very, very kind-hearted, right? Well, this guy, I went to trainings with him, so I know he speaks openly about this, that during his career, there were times where he worked like 16-hour days, didn't really give time to his family, with the thought that if I spend so much time during the year working, I can probably take a month off at the end of the year and then make up that lost time with my family during the month vacation. What he says is that he realized that's not the case and that's not how it works. And so he had to cut back on his hours in order to, balance that out again. So it sounds similar to the advice from the Top 5 Regrets of the Dying book, where people regretted working too hard. Okay. So why do we see this structure time and time again of subordinating one thing to another? Like why is that? I guess I could say that it comes down to opportunity costs, right? Our lifespan is limited. It's finite. We do not live infinite lives. Sometimes I like to say that we are infinite beings who are just living finite lives, or we're infinite beings in a finite world, right? I mean, the world, like this physical world is like finite, right? And yet we're infinite. We can imagine, like there's no limits to what we can imagine and what we can think and dream of, and yet we're confined to like a 24-hour day, or we're confined to the forces of gravity and these other finite things, right? We're confined to like a limited lifespan, right? Whether it's 90 years, 85, 95, whatever it is, right? It's finite. It's going to come to an end, right? So we've got this weird paradox of being like an infinite being in a finite world, okay? All right, last point. Let's wrap this up. So what are we to do, and what are we to make of this, right? Well, we have to remember that wherever we turn, we're going to find this structure. I mean, even the philosophy of existence first, and even the name of the business, existence first. Think about this, right? Existence first. What does that mean? First, not second. The same structure everywhere you turn, right? And what's the meaning of existence first? Well, there's a couple meanings, but one of them is to put your life and the creation of life ahead of other things, right? Instead of getting distracted by this or that, I got my health insurance, this, which are all important things, the materialistic things that Matthew Noska talked about, right? Yes, those are important, but just the creation of your own identity is more important, right? Because look at it, it all ties in. So we're infinite beings in a finite world, okay? What does that mean? That means that because we're in a finite amount of time, there's only so much we can do, right? There's a limit, a cap. We cannot do everything. And so by making a free decision on what we're going to do, that is an expression to the world of what we think ought to be prioritized, right? That's very bold. That's a very bold statement. Very bold statement to the world, right? What you choose to prioritize sends a message, right, about how you think life ought to be lived, right? Existence first. Look, my shirt. Existence precedes essence. That means that you make your free choices. That's your existence. And based on the free choices that you make, the free decisions you make, that creates your essence, your identity, right? So you're not born with that identity. You create that through your own free decisions. And we need to make those free decisions because we have a finite amount of time to work with, okay? So think deeply, put your existence first.